In the game of global influence, strength is rarely about sheer size or volume. True strength lies in positioning, in the art of knowing when and how to apply pressure. What moves nations forward is not always the accumulation of resources or the boasting of armies, but the ability to convert circumstance into advantage. Power is not simply possessed, it is exercised through the intelligent use of leverage. Leverage is what allows the smaller player to move the larger one. It is the principle that a well-placed effort can tilt the balance of an entire system. Nations understand this as much as individuals do. A country with fewer resources, but with the right alliances, trade strategies, and timing, can compel even the mightiest economies to make concessions. It is about positioning yourself in such a way that others have no choice but to engage on your terms. This is not about chance, it is deliberate design. When one nation understands that its markets, its population, its strategic geography, or its alliances are critical to another, it holds a form of currency far more valuable than money, influence. By making itself indispensable in certain domains, it creates negotiating power. And when that power is applied with precision, outcomes that once seemed impossible suddenly become inevitable. Look at the dynamics of modern trade. Tariffs, sanctions, and negotiations are not just technical economic measures, they are tools of power. But when one nation refuses to play as a subordinate and instead positions itself as a key player with alternatives, it changes the rules. If one door closes, it opens another with a different ally, creating pressure until the original partner is forced back to the table. This is leverage at work. Not aggression, not brute force, but strategy. The real beauty of leverage lies in its compounding effect. Every win, no matter how small, becomes a stepping stone to a greater one. Once you've demonstrated that you can bend the will of others without breaking your own, you build momentum. That momentum sends a message. You cannot be ignored, you cannot be sidelined, and you will not be underestimated again. What many fail to realize is that leverage is often created before the moment of negotiation even begins. It comes from years of building alliances, investing in industries, strengthening trade routes, and creating dependencies. By the time the discussion starts, the foundation is already set. The one who prepared with foresight is the one who controls the outcome. In a world where power dynamics are constantly shifting, those who understand how to create and wield leverage are the ones who thrive. They don't simply react to the world, they shape it. They don't wait for opportunities, they engineer them. And when the moment comes to stand at the table, they don't just ask for respect, they command it. Throughout history, the greatest shifts in power have not come from isolated acts of strength, but from collective force. When individuals, communities, or nations choose to align their energies toward a shared purpose, their influence multiplies beyond calculation. What one cannot accomplish alone, many can achieve together. That is the law of unity. It transforms individual voices into a chorus that cannot be ignored. In the arena of global politics, this principle is even more evident. A single nation standing firm can make an impact, but when it stands alongside allies who share mutual interests, it becomes unstoppable. The world takes notice not because of mere defiance, but because of the weight carried by collective will. Nations that might have been dismissed when acting in isolation suddenly command respect when their actions are echoed by others of equal strength. This amplification is not just political, it is psychological. When partners stand side by side, they project stability, solidarity, and resilience. Adversaries must then reconsider their approach. Instead of negotiating with one, they must navigate the combined power of many. That dynamic shifts the balance of bargaining, making it far more difficult to impose unfavorable terms or force submission. The lesson extends far beyond governments. It is true in organizations, in movements, in human relationships. Unity makes weakness irrelevant, because the gaps of one are covered by the strengths of another. Each member of the alliance brings something to the table: resources, knowledge, influence, or geography. When woven together, these contributions form a fabric so strong it cannot be torn. What makes unity truly powerful is that it magnifies influence without necessarily increasing cost. One nation does not need to double its resources when it has a partner doubling alongside it. Instead of exhaustion, unity generates efficiency. It allows for a pooling of capabilities that extends reach while conserving energy. This is why great leaders throughout history sought alliances. They understood that solidarity is force multiplied. There is also a deeper, more enduring effect. Unity sends a message of inevitability. It tells the world that the movement cannot be divided, cannot be weakened by isolation, and will not fracture under pressure. Opponents thrive on division. They exploit cracks to break resistance. But when a collective refuses to split, when it demonstrates that its bond is stronger than external pressure, it becomes almost impossible to defeat. At its core, this is not simply about numbers or power, it is about vision. Unity requires alignment around a bigger picture, something that transcends immediate gains and unites different entities under a common destiny. When that vision is clear and shared, sacrifices are made willingly and victories are enjoyed collectively. Influence in today's interconnected world is rarely about standing taller than others. It is about standing together. A nation, a movement, a group of people, when they embrace the truth that cooperation is strength, they evolve from being a single note to becoming a symphony. And in that symphony, every voice matters, every action counts, and together they create a force that shapes history. Every deal, every agreement, every handshake that happens at the highest levels of power is not just a polite exchange. It is combat in another form. The battlefield is not lined with tanks or missiles, but with words, strategies, and tactics. Each side comes armed not with weapons, but with demands, concessions, and the determination to walk away stronger than they arrived. Negotiation is never neutral. It is about securing ground without losing credibility, about gaining advantage without surrendering dignity. The stakes may not be measured in blood, but they are measured in influence, wealth, and the future direction of nations. To walk into a negotiation unprepared is to step into a war zone without armor. To walk in with clarity, leverage, and resilience is to ensure that the outcome bends in your favor. Every great negotiation begins long before the table is set. It starts with preparation, intelligence, and the subtle moves that shape the terrain. One side strengthens alliances, another highlights alternatives, and both signal resolve. By the time words are exchanged, the real battle has already been half won by whoever positioned themselves most effectively beforehand. Inside the negotiation itself, tactics mirror those of warfare. There are feint, offers that appear generous but are designed to pull attention away from the true objective. There are displays of power, reminders of what will happen if the deal collapses. There are retreats, small concessions meant to disguise larger victories, and there are final pushes where both sides test how much the other is truly willing to endure. But unlike the battlefield, the goal is not to destroy the opponent. It is to bend them, to make them see that their best outcome is found in alignment with your terms. It is psychological. Who blinks first, who shows signs of desperation, who convinces the other that walking away would cost them more than yielding. Victory is determined not by shouting the loudest, but by holding the steadiest line. Patience becomes a weapon. Silence becomes a tool. Every pause, every delay, every refusal to rush forces the other side to confront their own urgency. And urgency is weakness. The side that can wait, the side that can endure discomfort longer, is the side that ultimately dictates the terms. What makes negotiation so powerful is that it tests more than policies. It tests character. It reveals discipline, resilience, and clarity of vision. Those who negotiate with fear end up conceding. Those who negotiate with arrogance risk collapse. But those who negotiate with strategy, calm, and conviction emerge not just with better deals, but with greater respect. In this arena, victory is not loud. It is subtle, it is strategic, and it is enduring. The agreements forged may look like compromise, but beneath the surface, they are often victories dressed in balance. And just like on any battlefield, those who master the terrain, who outlast their opponent, and who refuse to be shaken are the ones who walk away with the spoils. In today's world, power is not measured only by military strength or the size of an army. It is increasingly defined by the ability to dominate markets, control resources, and influence global financial systems. Nations that achieve breakthroughs in trade, industry, and innovation create ripples far beyond their borders. They do not simply earn wealth. They command recognition, attention, and respect on the world stage. Every major turning point in history has carried an economic dimension. The rise of empires was not only about conquests, but about controlling trade routes, accumulating gold, and mastering industries of their age. In the modern era, it is not enough for a nation to possess weapons. It must possess influence over supply chains, consumer markets, and technological ecosystems. Those who win economically shape the future of diplomacy, while those who fall behind are forced to accept terms set by others. What makes economic triumph so powerful is their sustainability. A battle may be won in a day, but economic strength compounds over decades. Factories, innovation hubs, and trade partnerships become the engines that consistently generate growth, stability, and resilience. These engines give nations the freedom to negotiate from a position of strength. They no longer have to plead, they can dictate. Respect in international relations is rarely given freely. It is earned through proof of strength. When a country demonstrates that its industries are thriving, its exports are in demand, and its financial stability is unshakable, other nations take notice. Suddenly, partnerships are sought, alliances are proposed, and doors that were once closed begin to open. Wealth commands attention because it represents stability, opportunity, and the promise of shared growth for those who align with it. There is also a psychological dimension. Nations that rise economically create an aura of inevitability. Others begin to view them not as competitors to be contained, but as forces that must be accommodated. This perception changes the tone of every discussion, from trade deals to defense agreements. Instead of being pressured, they become courted. Instead of being dictated to, they are consulted. Economic victories also have a multiplying effect internally. They fuel confidence within a nation, uniting people with pride in their progress. Jobs are created, standards of living improve, and innovation accelerates. This domestic strength translates directly into global credibility. A nation that can lift its own people is far more likely to inspire respect beyond its borders. What many fail to see is that the global stage is less about who shouts the loudest and more about who holds the purse strings. Power follows prosperity, influence follows growth, and when a nation proves it can consistently create value, not just for itself but for the world, it earns a position that no military maneuver alone could ever secure. The truth is simple. Nations that thrive economically are not just players in the game, they become referees, setting the rules and shaping the future. And in a world where respect is currency, those victories are worth more than gold. Progress in any arena, whether personal, national, or global, does not come from a single victory. It comes from the chain reaction that one win sets into motion. Success is never an isolated event, it is fuel. It is the spark that ignites further action, the push that builds acceleration. The moment forward motion begins, it becomes harder to stop, because momentum has a force all its own. Momentum is not about luck. It is the product of consistent effort, decisive action, and the refusal to stand still. One breakthrough leads to another, and each step taken creates the conditions for the next. When a nation negotiates a favorable deal, it strengthens its economy. That economic boost empowers it to expand industries, attract investment, and fortify alliances. With every move, the engine grows stronger, and soon the initial spark evolves into unstoppable drive. This principle is visible everywhere. Athletes know it. When they score early, their energy rises, their confidence grows, and suddenly they perform at levels they never imagined. Businesses know it. When sales rise and markets expand, investors pour in and growth multiplies. Nations know it. When they secure victories in trade, technology, or diplomacy, they shift the global perception of what they are capable of, drawing even more opportunities. The real power of momentum is psychological. It changes the mindset not only of the one moving forward, but of everyone watching. Rivals see it and grow cautious. Allies see it and grow excited. Citizens see it and grow proud. Momentum creates belief, and belief becomes a multiplier of action. Once people believe that forward progress is inevitable, they contribute to it, accelerate it, and defend it against threats. But momentum must be protected. Just as it can accelerate progress, it can also be lost through complacency. A series of small missteps can stall progress, and once the drive halts, it is far harder to restart. That is why leaders who understand its value guard it fiercely. They know that even small wins matter, because each one keeps the machine turning. They understand that discipline, persistence, and vision are the safeguards that transform momentum from a spark into a storm. The beauty of momentum is that it compounds. Each success is no longer just an addition. It becomes a multiplier. What started as one achievement soon feels like a wave of victories. The narrative shifts from "they succeeded once" to "they cannot be stopped." That story alone reshapes how the world responds, making resistance weaker and cooperation stronger. History shows us that the rise of great powers has always followed this pattern. One bold step sets off a chain of events that accelerates growth and expands influence. Momentum is not the result of waiting. It is the result of daring, of moving when others hesitate, of pressing forward when others retreat. Once it begins, it carries a force larger than any single action. It transforms effort into inevitability. It turns ambition into reality, and it ensures that progress is not temporary, but a rising tide that shapes the future. History does not remember the cautious. It remembers the risk-takers, the visionaries, the ones who dared to step into uncertainty when others hesitated. Every breakthrough, every transformation, every leap forward has come from a decision that carried risk. Playing safe may preserve the present, but only boldness creates the future. When individuals or nations choose to act with courage, they break patterns that have kept them confined. They disrupt the comfort of the status quo and demand that something new be born. This is not recklessness. It is calculated daring. It is the recognition that waiting for perfect conditions is a trap, because perfection never arrives. Progress comes when someone is willing to move before all the lights turn green. The world respects courage because courage changes outcomes. A bold move can realign alliances, open new markets, or spark innovation that reshapes industries. It shows others what is possible, and in doing so, it inspires them to act as well. The ripples extend far beyond the initial choice, creating waves of transformation. What makes bold decisions so powerful is not that they guarantee victory, but that they guarantee growth. Even when they fail, they teach lessons that cautious waiting never could. Every daring attempt builds resilience, sharpens strategy, and strengthens resolve. Over time, these lessons compound, giving the bold an edge that the timid can never match. At the level of nations, the same principle holds true. No country ever rose to prominence by staying in the shadows. They rose because leaders chose to negotiate harder, invest in innovation, and take positions that seemed risky at the time but proved visionary in hindsight. They understood that destiny is not written by chance. It is carved by choice, and the choices that matter most are rarely comfortable. The truth is that the world does not reward hesitation. Opportunities appear, and if they are not seized, they vanish. Competitors step in, momentum shifts, and the moment is gone. Those who move boldly claim the ground that others were too slow to step on. That is how advantage is created, by daring to act faster, louder, and with greater conviction. Yet boldness is not blind. It requires clarity of vision. It requires discipline and strategy. A reckless gamble may destroy, but a bold, calculated decision has the power to redefine what is possible. The greatest leaders and nations understand this balance. They are willing to accept uncertainty not because they love risk, but because they love progress more. In the end, destiny is shaped not by those who waited for guarantees, but by those who created them. The future belongs to the ones who stepped forward when others stood still, who believed in possibilities greater than their fears, and who acted with conviction when it mattered most. Boldness is the bridge between potential and reality, and those who cross it are the ones who write history.